The escape pod tumbled through the darkness of space like a dying star. Inside, Lyra pressed her hands against the cold metal walls and tried to remember how to breathe. Every breath hurt. Every thought hurt. Everything hurt. She was alone. The word echoed in her mind like a scream that would never end. Alone. Her mother was dead. Her father was dead. Her 3 siblings were dead. Everyone she had ever loved was gone, executed in the Great Hall while she hid like a coward behind a statue. No, not a coward. Her guard had pushed her there. Run, princess, he had whispered with his dying breath. Live, but for what? Lyra looked down at her hands. They were covered in dried blood that glowed faintly blue in the darkness. Her own blood. The blood of her people. She touched the side of her head where her crest had been. The beautiful bioluminescent crown that marked her as royalty had been shattered when she fell during her escape. Now there was only broken flesh and shame. The pod shook violently, and warning lights flashed red across the small screen. Life support was failing. Oxygen was running low. The temperature was dropping. Lyra watched the numbers fall and felt nothing. Perhaps this was better. Perhaps she should just close her eyes and let the cold take her. She had sent 17 distress signals, 17 calls for help into the vast emptiness of space. No one had answered. The neighboring empires were afraid of General Vex and his war machines. The Yamara Empire had been powerful once, spanning 47 star systems. Now it belonged to a monster. And no one wanted to anger him by helping the last princess. Lyra curled into a ball on the floor of the pod. She was so cold, so tired. She closed her eyes and saw her family again. Her mother's kind smile. Her father's strong hands. Her sister's laugh. Her brother's jokes. All gone. All murdered while she ran away. I am sorry, she whispered to the ghosts in her mind. I am so sorry. The pod lurched again, harder this time. Lyra did not move. She did not care anymore. Far above, in the debris field of the Kolar system, a human salvage ship drifted between chunks of broken metal and frozen ice. The ship was called the Morning Star, and it had seen better days. Its hull was patched with different colored metals, and its engines hummed with a sound that suggested they worked more from hope than from proper engineering. On the bridge, Captain Hyun-woo studied the scanner with tired eyes. He was 45 years old, with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from a military career he tried not to remember. Beside him, his first officer, Nari, leaned over the console, her fingers flying across the controls. There, she said, pointing at a small blip on the screen. That signal. It is very weak, but it is there. Hyun-woo frowned. How weak? Almost dead. Like someone gave up hours ago. In the medical bay, Tae-min looked up from his supplies. He was young, only 28, with gentle hands and a soft voice. We should check it out. It could be someone who needs help. At the pilot station, Yejin turned in her chair. She was 25 and sharp, with quick reflexes and quicker wit. Captain, we are already behind schedule. The company will be angry if we waste time on ghost signals. Sang-woo, the security officer, grunted from his post near the door. At 38, he had been a soldier longer than some of the crew had been alive. Since when do we care what the company thinks? We are salvagers, not monsters. Hyun-woo made his decision quickly. Nari, plot a course. Yejin, take us in slow. Sang-woo, prep the airlock. Tae-min, get ready for a possible rescue. The Morning Star changed direction, its engines pushing it through the debris field toward the weak signal. As they got closer, the scanners picked up more details. It was an escape pod, small and damaged, drifting without power. Life signs? Hyun-woo asked. Nari shook her head. Barely. One occupant. Oxygen is almost gone. Temperature is critical. Captain, if there is someone in there, they do not have much time. Yejin brought the ship alongside the pod with careful precision. Sang-woo suited up and went out into the void, magnetic boots keeping him attached to the hull. He attached a tether to the pod and pulled it into the cargo bay. When they opened the pod, they found her. Lyra was curled in the corner, her blue skin pale and covered with darker blue blood. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes were closed. She looked so small, so broken. The broken crest on her head marked her as something special, though none of them knew what yet. Taemin rushed forward with his medical kit. "Careful," he said softly as he reached for her. "She is hurt badly." When his hands touched her arm, Lyra's eyes snapped open. They were wide with terror, filled with memories of violence and death. She screamed and pushed away from him, pressing herself against the wall of the pod. "No, no, no," she gasped in broken universal standard, the common language of the galaxy. "Please, no more. They killed them. They killed them all." Taemin pulled back, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. "You are safe now. We want to help you." But Lyra could not hear him over the sound of her own panic. She looked at the humans surrounding her and saw only danger. She had trusted her guards, and most of them had turned against her family. She had trusted her father's generals, and they had murdered him. Trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. "I am nothing," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I am an echo, a memory. Let me die. Please, let me die." Hyun-woo stepped forward slowly, the way one might approach a wounded animal. He knelt down so his eyes were level with hers. His voice was quiet but firm. "I do not know who you are or what happened to you," he said. "But I know this. You are on my ship now. And on my ship, we do not leave people behind. We do not let people die when we can help them. You might think you are nothing, but you are wrong. You are someone who needs help, and that is enough." Lyra stared at him, this strange human with his scarred hands and kind eyes. She did not understand him. She did not understand why these aliens would help her when her own people had not. But she was so tired of fighting, so tired of everything. "Please," she whispered one more time. But she did not know what she was asking for anymore. Taemin moved in again, slowly, carefully. This time Lyra did not push him away. She simply closed her eyes and let the darkness take her, trusting these strangers because she had nothing left to lose. As Taemin carried her to the medical bay, Nari examined the escape pod. Her eyes widened when she saw the royal seals embedded in the data core. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think we just rescued someone very important." Hyun-woo looked at the small, broken figure in Taemin's arms. Important or not, she was still just a person who needed help. And that was all that mattered. "Then we better make sure she survives," he said. Lyra woke up screaming. The medical bay was dark except for the soft glow of monitors, but in her mind she saw only fire and blood. She saw her mother falling. She saw her father's crown rolling across the marble floor. She heard her sister's last cry. Hands touched her shoulders, gentle but firm. "You are safe. Breathe with me. In and out." Slowly. It was Taemin, the human medic. He sat beside her bed every night now, 3 weeks into their journey. Every night she woke up screaming. Every night he was there. "In," he said calmly, breathing deeply. "And out." Lyra tried to match his breathing. Her hearts were racing, both of them pounding in her chest like war drums. Slowly, very slowly, the panic faded. The ghosts retreated back into the shadows of her mind. "Good," Taemin said softly. "You are doing well." Lyra did not feel like she was doing well. She felt broken, shattered into so many pieces that she would never be whole again. During the day, she sat in the medical bay and stared at the walls. She could not eat much. Food tasted like ash in her mouth. The humans tried to help, bringing her different things, but nothing seemed right. She was wasting away. And part of her did not care. Taemin worried. She could see it in his eyes, but he never gave up. He sat with her and talked about simple things. The weather on his home planet, his family, the time he tried to cook and nearly burned down his apartment. Silly stories that required nothing from her except to listen. Sometimes Ye-jin, the pilot, would visit. She sat cross-legged on the floor and told Lyra about the stars they were passing. She talked about her own family, lost in something she called the Mars Colonies War. "I know what it is like to lose everyone," Yejin said quietly. "I know how it feels to be the only one left." Lyra looked at her. Really looked at her. And saw the same pain in the human's eyes. "How do you survive it?" she whispered. Yejin smiled sadly. "One day at a time. One breath at a time. And with people who care about you." Nari, the first officer, came with different gifts. She had created a small garden in the cargo bay using hydroponics and salvaged equipment. She brought Lyra a small plant with blue flowers. "I broke this plant once," Nari said, showing Lyra the stem where it had been carefully mended. "I thought it would die. But I gave it water and light and time. Look at it now. It is blooming." Lyra touched the delicate petals. Something about the plant made her throat tight. "I am not a plant," she said. "No." Nari agreed. "But you are also broken. And like this plant, you can grow again if you let yourself." Sangwoo's approach was different. He did not talk much. Instead, he taught her how to defend herself. Simple moves at first. How to stand. How to block. How to punch. "You feel helpless," he said bluntly. "This will help you feel less helpless." At first, Lyra could barely lift her arms, but Sangwoo was patient. Day by day, she grew a little stronger. Day by day, she felt a little less like a victim. Captain Hyun-woo watched all of this from a distance. But he watched carefully. He treated Lyra not like a princess or a patient, but like a person. He asked her opinion about small things. What did she think about the route they were taking? Did she prefer the temperature warmer or cooler? Simple questions that reminded her she still had choices. 1 month into the journey, Nari decrypted the data from Lyra's escape pod. The crew gathered in the common room, and Hyun-woo showed Lyra what they had found. Royal seals. Family records, proof of who she was. "You are Princess Lyra of the House of Tal," Hyun-woo said. "Last of the royal bloodline of the Yamara Empire." Lyra stared at the screen. Seeing her family's faces there, frozen in official portraits, made her chest ache. "I was a princess," she said quietly. "Now I am nothing. General Vex has declared me dead. He has taken everything." "Not everything," Yejin said. "He did not take you." But Lyra shook her head. "What am I without my family, without my empire? I am just a ghost." The crew was quiet for a moment. Then Hyun-woo spoke. "You are someone who survived. That counts for something." Over the next weeks, Lyra learned more about humans. She learned that they celebrated something called birthdays. Special days that honored when each person was born. They made sweet food and sang songs. It seemed strange to her, but also beautiful. Her people only celebrated the births of royalty. She learned that humans shared meals together, sitting around a table and talking. It was not just about eating. It was about being together. The crew of the Morning Star invited her to join them every evening. And slowly, she began to accept. She learned about human movies, stories told through moving pictures. Yejin showed her films about people who lost everything but found the strength to keep going. Stories about hope and courage. Lyra cried during most of them, but it felt good to cry for someone else's story instead of only her own. Most importantly, she learned about the human concept of family. It was not just about blood. Humans could choose their family. They could call people brother or sister even when they were not related. They could create bonds as strong as any born from the same parents. "Is that what you are?" Lyra asked one evening as they all sat together eating. "A chosen family?" Hyun-woo smiled. "Yes, that is exactly what we are." 2 months into the journey, the crew received troubling news through the ship's intelligence network. General Vex had declared himself emperor. He had enslaved most of the Yamara population, forcing them to work in factories and mines. He was building a massive military force, and he was expanding, threatening human colonies near the border. There was also a bounty. Anyone who could prove that Princess Lyra still lived would receive enough credits to buy a small planet. The crew looked at Lyra nervously. That kind of money could change their lives. They were salvagers, always struggling to pay for fuel and repairs. This was a fortune. Lyra stood up slowly. "I understand," she said, her voice steady. "You have been kind to me. But this is too much to ask. Take me to the nearest station and collect the bounty. You have earned it." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Sangwoo laughed, a rough sound. "Did you hit your head, Princess?" "We do not sell people." "He is right," Nari said firmly. "We are not bounty hunters. We are your crew now." "Our family does not abandon family," Yejin added. Taemin just shook his head, smiling softly. Hyunwoo stood and faced Lyra. "You think we saved you so we could sell you? That is not who we are. That is not who humans are. We help because it is right, not because it benefits us." Lyra felt something break inside her. Not the bad kind of breaking. The kind that lets light in. Tears ran down her face, glowing blue in the dim light. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much?" "Because you matter," Hyunwoo said simply. "You do not need a crown or a kingdom to matter. You are a person, and that is enough." That night, Lyra had another nightmare. But this time, when she woke up screaming, she was not alone. The entire crew was there. Taemin helped her breathe. Nari held her hand. Yejin sat at the foot of her bed. Sangwoo stood guard at the door. Hyunwoo pulled up a chair and settled in. "We are not going anywhere," he said. "You are stuck with us now." For the first time since the massacre, Lyra smiled. It was small and fragile, but it was real. She was still broken. She still had nightmares. She still cried when she thought about her family. But she was beginning to understand something important. She did not have to heal alone. These humans, these strange, kind, stubborn humans, had chosen to stand beside her. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start putting the pieces back together. The human border station called Apex Point hung in space like a metal flower, its arms reaching out into the darkness. The Morning Star docked carefully, and Lyra felt her stomach twist with nervousness. This would be the first time she left the ship since the crew had rescued her. "Stay close," Hyunwoo said gently. "We are with you." The station was crowded and loud. Beings from dozens of species moved through the corridors, buying and selling, arguing and laughing. Lyra kept her hood up, hiding her face and her broken crest. She did not want anyone to recognize her. But as they moved deeper into the station, she began to see them. Her people. Yamara. They sat in corners, begging for credits. They wore dirty clothes and had empty eyes. Children clung to their parents, too thin, too quiet. Lyra's hearts broke all over again. "How many?" she whispered. Nari checked her datapad. "Thousands here on this station alone. Tens of thousands more scattered across human space. They are refugees, Lyra. They escaped from Vex, but they have nowhere to go." Hyunwoo led them to a quiet section of the station, where a human named Day One ran an underground network that helped refugees. Day One was older, maybe 60, with white hair and steady eyes. He had been an admiral once, before he retired to help people instead of fighting wars. "So you are the princess," Day One said, looking at Lyra carefully. "We heard rumors you might still be alive." "I am not a princess anymore," Lyra said quietly. "I am just someone who ran away while her family died." Day One shook his head. "Running away and surviving are not the same thing, child. You lived. That matters." He showed them the network he had built. Safe houses. Secret routes to get refugees away from danger. Food distribution. Medical care. It was impressive, but it was not enough. There were too many refugees and not enough resources. "They need hope," Day One said. "They need something to believe in. Right now, they are just waiting to die." That afternoon, Lyra insisted on seeing the refugee camps. The crew tried to talk her out of it, but she refused to hide anymore. She needed to see what had happened to her people. The camps were worse than she had imagined. Yamara families lived in small metal boxes, sleeping on the floor, eating rations that were barely enough to survive. The proud civilization that had once ruled 47 star systems was reduced to this, to begging, to hopelessness. An elderly Yamara woman sat outside one of the shelters. Lyra knelt beside her, still hiding her face under her hood. "Are you well, grandmother?" Lyra asked softly in her native language. The old woman looked at her with tired eyes. "As well as any of us. Child, we survive. That is all we can do now. Do you have hope that things will get better?" The woman laughed bitterly. "Hope? We had a princess once. Beautiful and kind," they said. "But she abandoned us when Vex came. She ran away and left us to suffer. Why should we hope?" The words cut deeper than any knife. Lyra stood and walked away before the old woman could see her tears. She had not abandoned them. She had barely escaped with her life. But they did not know that. They thought she had chosen to leave them. That night, the crew met with more humans who were part of the resistance network. There was Wu Jin, a young man who worked in information warfare, spreading truth and fighting Vex's propaganda. There was Bora, a diplomat who had helped negotiate peace between warring worlds. There was Jiwoo, a civilian who had built grassroots support networks that helped refugees find jobs and housing. They all looked at Lyra with curiosity and hope. "You could be a symbol," Woojin said excitedly. "The lost princess returned. We could broadcast your message across the galaxy. Tell everyone that the royal line survives." But Bora shook her head. "No. That is the old way. Empires and crowns and conquest. It does not work. Vex has a crown now. And look what he does with it." "Then what do we do?" Lyra asked, frustrated. "My people are dying. They are losing hope. I am the last of my family. I should do something." Bo-Ra leaned forward, her eyes serious. "You want to know the human way? It is not about crowns. It is not about declaring yourself queen and demanding people follow you. It is about earning their trust. It is about service. You do not need a throne to be a leader. You need to give people a reason to believe in you." Over the next 3 months, Lyra learned. She studied human history, reading about their revolutions and civil rights movements. She learned about leaders who served their people instead of ruling them. She learned about something called democracy, where people had a voice in choosing their leaders. She practiced public speaking with Bo-Ra, learning how to use her voice to inspire instead of command. She studied strategy with Wu Jin, understanding how to fight with ideas instead of weapons. She worked with Day One, planning relief operations and refugee support. But most importantly, she went back to the camps. This time, she did not reveal who she was. She simply helped. She distributed food with Taemin. She taught children to read and write. She listened to people's stories. She organized councils where refugees could discuss their problems and find solutions together. The Yamara in the camps began to notice her. They called her the kind woman. They did not know she was their princess, but they trusted her. They saw that she cared. They saw that she treated them with dignity and respect. Word spread. More refugees came to the programs she started. They created schools for the children. They opened medical clinics. They formed trade cooperatives so Wimara could work and earn money with honor instead of begging. One evening, Lyra sat with the crew of the Morning Star, in their small quarters on the station. She was exhausted but also more alive than she had felt in months. "I am beginning to understand," she said quietly. "The humans do not build empires. They build communities. They do not rule through fear. They lead through example." Hyunwoo nodded. "Now you are learning. True power is not about how many people you can force to obey. It is about how many people choose to stand with you." 6 months passed. Lyra worked tirelessly, always in disguise, always humble. She started broadcasting messages on underground networks. talking about unity and hope. She never mentioned that she was the princess. She only talked about what they could build together if they worked as one. The movement grew. Refugees began to organize. They created support systems for each other. They built communities based on cooperation instead of hierarchy. They started to hope again. Then everything changed. General Vex's forces attacked one of the refugee settlements. Lyra was there, helping to distribute supplies. When Vex's soldiers marched in, weapons ready, demanding that everyone submit to the new emperor, something inside Lyra snapped. She saw the soldiers threatening children. She saw them about to hurt the same people who had finally started to believe in a better future. And she could not stay silent anymore. Lyra threw back her hood. Her broken crest was still visible, but it glowed with the light of her anger and determination. She stepped forward, placing herself between the soldiers and the refugees. "Stop," she said, and her voice carried the weight of her royal bloodline. The soldiers froze. They recognized her. Everyone recognized her. "I am Lyra of the House of Tal," she said, her voice ringing across the settlement. "I am the last of the royal line, and I claim these people as my own. If you touch them, you do not just attack refugees. You attack me. You attack every human who stands behind me. You declare war on hope itself." The soldiers looked at each other nervously. They had been told the princess was dead. Seeing her alive, seeing her defend the refugees with human allies at her back, shook them. They retreated. The refugees stared at Lyra in shock. The kind woman who had helped them, who had listened to their stories, who had taught their children, was the princess they thought had abandoned them. An old woman stepped forward. It was the same grandmother Lyra had spoken to months ago. Recognition dawned in her eyes. "You," she whispered. "You were here all along. You did not abandon us." "No, grandmother," Lyra said, tears streaming down her face. "I never abandoned you. I was just lost. But these humans found me. They taught me how to be more than a princess. They taught me how to serve." That night, thousands of Yamara refugees gathered. They had expected Lyra to claim the throne, to call for war, to demand they fight for her. That was the old way. That was how the empire had always worked. Instead, Lyra did something that had never been done before in Yamara history. She knelt before them. The silence in the gathering was absolute. Thousands of Yamara stared at their princess, kneeling in the dust before them. This had never happened before. Royalty did not kneel to common people. Royalty commanded. Royalty ruled. But Lyra kept her head bowed. "I was born to rule you," she said, her voice clear in the quiet. "My family wore the crown for 300 generations. But I do not wish to rule you. The humans have taught me something better. I wish to serve you, to earn your trust, to be worthy of you." She raised her head and looked at the crowd. At the elderly and the young. At the broken and the hopeful. At her people. "I cannot give you back what was taken. I cannot bring back those we lost. But I can help you build something new. Something better. Not an empire built on power, but a community built on choice. If you will let me, I will work beside you, not above you, beside you." The old grandmother stepped forward and touched Lyra's shoulder. "Stand up, child. A leader does not kneel forever. A leader stands with their people." Lyra stood, and the crowd erupted. Not with cheers exactly, but with something deeper. With belief. With hope. With the feeling that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. Over the next 6 months, the movement exploded. More refugees joined, more settlements were built. Lyra worked alongside her people every day. She helped build shelters, she worked in the medical clinics, she taught in the schools. She lived not as a princess but as one of them. The crew of the Morning Star expanded their operations. Hyunwoo coordinated supply runs, risking his ship again and again to bring food and medicine to the settlements. Nari built communication networks so the scattered Yamara communities could stay connected. Yejin trained Yamara pilots in defensive tactics. teaching them how to protect themselves. Sang-woo organized security for the refugee camps, showing them how to defend without becoming violent. Taemin opened medical clinics, training Yamara healers in human medicine. Other humans helped too. Thousands of them. They donated money and time and resources. They volunteered in the camps. They stood guard at the borders. They believed in what Lyra was building, and they wanted to be part of it. "Why do you help?" Lyra asked Jiwoo one day as they worked together to organize a food distribution center. Jiwoo smiled. "Because it is right. Because you are showing the galaxy something beautiful. Because humans believe that we all rise together. Or we all fall together." But not everyone was happy about the movement. Vex's empire was crumbling. Yamara workers were refusing to work. Soldiers were deserting. Entire planets were quietly rebelling, using the peaceful resistance tactics that Lyra had learned from human history. Vex sent a message demanding a meeting. He threatened war if Lyra did not submit to his authority. He claimed that he was the rightful emperor and that she was a traitor to her own people. The Yamara Council wanted her to refuse. It was too dangerous. Vex could kill her or capture her, but Lyra knew this was necessary. "He needs to see that I am not afraid. That we are not afraid. I will meet him, but on neutral ground, and the meeting will be broadcast across the galaxy. Let everyone see the difference between us." The meeting was arranged on a neutral space station. Security was tight. Cameras were everywhere. Billions of beings across the galaxy tuned in to watch the confrontation between the lost princess and the brutal general who had stolen her empire. Vex arrived in full military regalia, covered in medals and symbols of power. His guards wore heavy armor and carried massive weapons. He looked like what he was: a warlord who ruled through fear. Lyra arrived wearing simple clothes, the same kind that refugees wore. Her broken crest was visible, a symbol of her suffering. Beside her stood the crew of the Morning Star and representatives from the refugee communities. No weapons, no armor, just people. Vex sneered when he saw her. Is this what the proud House of Tal has become? A beggar dressed in rags, surrounded by humans? Lyra met his eyes calmly. "I am not a beggar. I am someone who has learned to see value in all beings, not just those who wear crowns." "You are no queen," Vex spat. "You command no armies. You hold no worlds. You are a puppet of the humans, playing at leadership while I rule a real empire." Lyra nodded slowly. "You are right about some things. I command no armies, because I do not need to command. My people follow willingly. I hold no worlds because I do not believe beings should be held. They should be free to choose. And yes, I learned from the humans. They taught me that true power is not about how many you can force to obey. It is about how many choose to stand with you." She took a step closer to the cameras, speaking not just to Vex but to everyone watching. "Look at what he calls an empire. Workers in chains, children in factories, people starving while he builds monuments to himself. Is that strength? Or is that fear? Is that leadership? Or is that cruelty?" Vex's face turned dark. "You know nothing about leadership. You ran away when your family needed you. You are weak." "I was weak," Lyra agreed. "I was broken and shattered and ready to die. But I was found by people who believed I could be more than my worst moment. They taught me that leadership is not about being the strongest or the most powerful. It is about lifting others up. It is about service." She turned to face Vex directly. "You can kill me if you want. You can try to crush this movement. But you cannot kill an idea. You cannot crush hope. For every person you hurt, 10 more will stand up. For every settlement you destroy, 20 more will be built. Because we are not fighting for a crown anymore. We are fighting for something better. We are fighting for choice, for dignity, for freedom." The broadcast reached every corner of Vex's empire. Workers watching in secret, soldiers in their barracks, civilians in their homes. They saw their supposedly dead princess, alive and strong. They saw her standing up to the tyrant without fear. They saw her vision of a better future. Uprisings began that same night. Not violent revolutions, but peaceful resistance. Workers stopped working. Soldiers put down their weapons. Civilians gathered in town squares and refused to move. They used the tactics that Lyra had taught, learned from human history. Sit-ins, strikes, peaceful protest. Vex's empire began to fall apart. Without willing workers, his factories stopped. Without loyal soldiers, his military fractured. Without the support of the people, his power crumbled. 3 months later, Vex was overthrown by his own generals, who surrendered peacefully in exchange for fair trials. The empire that had ruled 47 star systems dissolved, and the Yamara refugees gathered to decide what came next. They could have given Lyra the empire. They could have crowned her empress and let her rule as her ancestors had ruled. But the humans had taught them a different way. Instead, they held a vote. Every Yamara, from the oldest to the youngest who could understand, was given a choice. Did they want Lyra as their leader? Not because of her blood, not because of tradition, but because they chose her. 97% said yes. The coronation was unlike any in Yamara history. There was no golden throne, no displays of military might, no conquered peoples kneeling in submission. Instead, it was simple. It was meaningful. It combined Yamara traditions with human ideas of democracy and service. Representatives from every refugee community spoke about what Lyra had done for them. Children she had taught. Sick people she had cared for. Families she had helped reunite. They spoke not about her royal blood, but about her character. Then came the vows. In traditional Yamara coronations, the people vowed to obey the ruler. But in this ceremony, Lyra vowed to serve the people. She promised to listen to them, to work for them, to earn their trust every single day. When it came time for the crown, there was no ancient relic of gold and gems. Instead, Hyun-woo stepped forward with something he and Na-ri had made together in the workshop of the Morning Star. It was a simple circlet woven from titanium, the same metal that formed the bones of the ship that had saved her life. "You wear this crown because your people chose you," Hyun-woo said as he placed it on her head, careful of her still healing crest. "You are queen because you earned it. That is the human way, and it is a better way." Lyra stood before her people, wearing a crown of salvaged metal, surrounded by humans and Yamara alike. She was not the same broken princess who had hidden in an escape pod, wishing for death. She was someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who had learned that true power came not from ruling but from serving. "I am Queen Lyra of the Free Mara," she said, and her voice carried across the gathering. "And I promise you this. I will serve you all the days of my life." The crowd did not kneel. Instead, they stood together, free and equal, and chose to follow her into a new future. 1 year later, the free Wimara territory stretched across 12 star systems. It was not an empire in the old sense. There were no conquered peoples, no enslaved workers, no military parades showing strength. Instead, there were communities built on cooperation, schools that taught both Yamara heritage and human innovation, and a government that actually listened to its people. Queen Lyra stood in what had once been the throne room of the royal palace on Talvera. But it looked very different now. The massive throne had been removed and replaced with a circular council table. Citizens could petition her directly, bringing their concerns and ideas. Her advisors included both Yamara and humans, chosen for their wisdom and compassion rather than their noble blood. Today was an important day. The galactic community was watching to see how the free Yamara would handle justice. Vex and his generals were finally going on trial. Many wanted vengeance. They wanted Vex executed publicly for his crimes. He had murdered Lyra's family. He had enslaved millions. He had destroyed lives and crushed hope. He deserved to die. But Lyra had learned something from the humans about justice versus revenge. She stood before the council, with cameras broadcasting across the galaxy. Vex was brought in, his hands bound, his face angry and defiant. He looked at her with hatred. "Kill me and be done with it," he spat. That is what your father would have done. My father is dead because of you, Lyra said calmly. My mother, my siblings, thousands of innocents. You destroyed so much. Then execute me. Prove you are strong enough to rule. Lyra shook her head. Killing you would be easy. It would feel good in the moment. But it would not bring back those we lost. It would not heal the damage you caused. And it would make me just like you. She gestured to the council. Instead, you will face trial. You will hear testimony from those you hurt. You will be judged fairly, with the chance to defend yourself. And then, the council will decide your fate based on law and justice, not on emotion and revenge. Vex laughed bitterly. You are weak, just like I always said. Bo-Ra, the human diplomat who sat on the council, spoke up. She is not weak. She is something you will never understand. She is merciful. She is just, and that is why the people follow her while your own generals betrayed you. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Victims testified. Evidence was presented. Vex was given every chance to defend himself, though he had no defense for his crimes. In the end, the council found him guilty. But instead of execution, they sentenced him to life in prison, where he would work to help rebuild what he had destroyed. It was a human concept called restorative justice, making the criminal contribute to repairing the harm they caused. Many Yamara were angry at first. They wanted blood. But as time passed, they began to understand. Lyra was showing them a different way. A better way. Justice that healed instead of justice that simply hurt back. The palace itself had changed. Lyra lived simply, in quarters not much larger than those of her advisors. The vast wealth of the royal family was used to build schools and hospitals. The throne room was now a community center, where citizens gathered to discuss issues and make decisions together. She had created something called a parliament, based on human democratic systems. Representatives were elected from each community to help make laws and guide policy. Lyra had power, yes, but it was balanced by the voices of her people. One afternoon, Lyra walked through the rebuilt capital with the crew of the Morning Star. They visited schools where Yamara children learned alongside human children. They saw hospitals where human and Yamara doctors worked together, combining their medical knowledge. They walked through markets where trade was based on fairness rather than exploitation. You have built something amazing, Hyunwoo said, looking around with pride. Lyra smiled. We built it together. I could not have done this without you. Without all of you, Taemin laughed. Do you remember when we found you? You wanted to die. You thought you were nothing. I was broken. Lyra agreed. Shattered into pieces. But you showed me that broken things can be remade into something beautiful. Something stronger. Nari pointed to a group of children playing in a park. Yamara and humans, running and laughing together. Look at that. A year ago, this would have been impossible. Now it is normal. That evening, there was a ceremony at the palace. Lyra was establishing something new, something that honored the lessons she had learned. She called it the Crown of Service, an award given annually to beings who led through compassion and dedication, rather than force and power. The first recipient was Daewon, the human admiral who had helped build the refugee network. The old man stood before the assembly, tears in his eyes as Lyra placed a simple medallion around his neck. You showed me that one person can make a difference, Lyra said. You saved thousands of lives, not through war, but through kindness. This is the kind of leadership we honor now. See, after the ceremony, Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Bo-Ra joined her, and they stood together in comfortable silence. There is something I wanted to talk to you about, Bo-Ra said softly. Lyra looked at her, at this human woman who had taught her so much about diplomacy and democracy. Over the past year, their friendship had deepened into something more, something that made Lyra's hearts beat faster. What is it? Lyra asked. Bo-Ra smiled nervously. In my culture, when two people care for each other deeply, when they want to build a life together, they get married. It is a ceremony, a commitment. I was wondering if you might want to, if we could. Lyra took Bo-Ra's hand. Yes, I would like that very much. Their wedding 6 months later was a celebration of unity. Ymara and humans gathered together, combining traditions from both cultures. It was not a political marriage arranged for alliances. It was a choice made from love. And that made all the difference. The marriage strengthened bonds between humans and Ymara even further. Children growing up in the free Ymara territory learned that love and family could cross all boundaries. That differences made them stronger, not weaker. But there were still those who resisted change. Some of the old noble families tried to cause trouble. They wanted the empire back. They wanted the old hierarchy where they had power and everyone else served them. Lyra faced them with patience but firmness. The old ways are gone. We tried ruling through force and fear for 300 generations. It brought us to ruin. Now, we will try something different. If you cannot accept that, you are free to leave. But you are not free to harm these people. Most of them eventually accepted the new way. A few left, bitter and angry. But the vast majority of Ymara embraced the changes. They had tasted freedom, and they would not give it up. 3 years after her coronation, Lyra addressed the Galactic Assembly. Leaders from hundreds of worlds gathered to hear what the young queen had to say. "We are proof that another way is possible," she told them. "For generations, my people believed that strength came from conquest, from forcing others to obey, from building empires on the backs of the weak. We were wrong." She gestured to the humans in the audience. "These beings found me alone and shattered. They could have ignored me. They could have sold me for the bounty. They could have used me for their own purposes. Instead, they taught me that true strength comes from compassion. True power comes from service. True leadership comes from earning trust, not demanding obedience." She looked around at all the different species represented. "Some of you still rule through fear. Some of you still believe that might makes right. I am here to tell you that there is a better way. The human way. We rise by lifting each other. We grow strong together, not by stepping on those below us." Her words sparked debates across the galaxy. Some dismissed her as naive. Some called her ideas dangerous to traditional power structures. But others listened. Other species began to implement democratic reforms. Other leaders began to think about service instead of domination. The free Ymara territory became a model, a living example that democracy and compassion could work even in a diverse, multi-species society. On the 5th anniversary of her coronation, Lyra stood once again in the council chamber. The crew of the Morning Star was there, as they always were. They had become her closest advisors and dearest friends. Hyunwoo was grayer now, but still sharp. Nari had married a Ymara engineer and had 2 children who ran through the palace like it was their playground. Tae-min ran the largest medical research center in the sector, finding cures and treatments that helped everyone. Ye-jin commanded a fleet of ships that protected the borders peacefully, through deterrence rather than aggression. Sang-woo trained peacekeepers, teaching them to protect without becoming oppressors. "Do you ever regret it?" Lyra asked Hyunwoo quietly. "Picking up that signal? Saving a broken princess instead of collecting the bounty?" Hyunwoo laughed. "Regret? Lyra, you gave us something more valuable than any amount of credits. You gave us purpose. You showed us that one act of kindness can change the galaxy. You changed me," Lyra said. "You saved me." "No," Hyunwoo corrected gently. "We found you. But you saved yourself. You chose to heal. You chose to grow. You chose to serve. That was all you." That night, Lyra recorded a message for the historical archives. She wanted future generations to understand how the free Ymara territory came to be. "I was alone and shattered," she said into the camera. "I had lost everything. My family. My empire. My purpose. I wanted to die. But humans found me. And they taught me something incredible. They taught me that we are not defined by what we lose. We are defined by what we choose to become." She touched the simple circlet on her head, the crown made from the salvaged titanium of the Morning Star. The humans had a saying, We rise by lifting others. They lifted me when I was at my lowest. They showed me a better way to lead. And so, lifted by their compassion and their wisdom, I rose not to rule over my people, but to raise them up with me. She smiled. I am Queen Lyra of the free Yamara. But more importantly, I am someone who learned that true power comes not from the crown you wear, but from the people you serve. And that is a lesson I will carry all my days. The recording ended. Outside, the city hummed with life. Humans and Yamara working together. Children learning together. Families living together. A society built not on conquest but on cooperation. Not on fear but on hope. And at the center of it all was a queen who had been broken and remade. A queen who had been alone, but was alone no more. A queen who wore her crown not as a symbol of power, but as a reminder of service. She was Queen Lyra, and she was exactly where she needed to be.